Blood pools on the cavern floor as Lucius scrambles to Adelie's side and searches for a pulse. His heart almost stops when he can't find it, but then it's there. Weak and fading, but she's still alive. With a measure of strength he didn't know he possessed, Lucius lifts her and sprints for the cavern opening. Emerging into the waning light of Viridian's dusk, he hears murmurs from members of the Order as he shouts for them to move aside. He has no thought to spare for what they must think, or even if they are a threat. He has to make it to the Aegis. Lieutenant Mila greets him at the access ramp, and before they can say a word, Lucius says, "We have to get her to medical. She's already lost a lot of blood." They rush down the hallway to the medical bay, and Lucius lowers Adelie onto one of the beds, while Mila activates the medbots. As Lucius struggles to connect all of the necessary nodes to her skin, he can see just how pale she is. Warden's words echo in his mind. Protect the core. Protect her. And Lucius hopes he's not too late. Welcome back for episode 13 of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. After a violent confrontation with the leaders of her order, Adelie is dying, and her fate rests not only in the hands of Lucius Tarquin, but on a single roll of the dice. Find out if she survives on episode 13, All in a Day's Work. As Lucius applies the med patches and activates the medical bed, it's time to find out what happens to Adelie. And to do that, we're going to use the heal move. We've done this before with Adelie, and it turned out all right. But she is in dire straits right now. And Lucius is feeling the weight of this situation. So when we are providing care, we're going to roll plus wits. So Lucius has a wits of +3. I've got 2 momentum, so I have nothing to fall back on there. So it's just going to come down to the roll. Here we go. My challenge dice are an 8 and a 4, and my action die is a 5. That is a weak hit. On a weak hit, the care is helpful, but the recovery costs extra time or extra resources. I'm going to go ahead and mark 2 off my supply, which is going to take it down to 1, but Adelie lives. Lucius and Lieutenant Mila work and work. They activate the medical bots and they come in and help, and there's probably a really tense 15-20 minutes of just making sure that she's stabilized to the point where Lucius can step away and let the medbots do what they need to do for her. But at the end of that time, he steps back. His hands are covered in blood. His clothes are covered in blood. And he's just breathing raggedly, staring at her as her pulse on the monitor is strengthening. The medbots are transfusing blood into her to help her recover. And Lucius just... At which point, Lieutenant Mila says, "I'm sorry to interrupt your moment of relief, but the Ironhawks are on their way. They'll be here," and they check their chronometer and say, "In about 5 minutes. We really shouldn't be here when they arrive." And Lucius just kind of slumps a little bit and says, "You're right. We shouldn't be. All right, I will go to the cockpit. You make sure everybody who wants to leave is on board. And if they have any questions about where Demetrius and Benedict are, tell them that those two will meet us at a rendezvous point. And then he like wanders off, and Mila just kind of stands there watching Lucius go and then heads off in a different direction. Lucius heads to the cockpit by himself and settles into his seat. I think Brutus is following along, but Lucius barely even notices. And he tries to wipe some of the blood off of his hands onto his clothes. And it's very much just his hands are stained. But as we know right now, Adelie lives. I'm going to go ahead and mark another progress on my formidable vow, escort Adelie to Viridian, and keep the Ascendancy artifact out of the hands of the Ironhawks at whatever cost. Now, you could maybe make the argument that killing Demetrius and Benedict because they betrayed him is not necessarily keeping it out of the hands of the Ironhawks, but it's certainly keeping it out of the wrong hands, I would say. So I'm going to go ahead and take some progress for that. All right, so we're sitting at 5 out of 10 progress for this, and as the ship powers up, Lucius looks at the scanner and can see that there are a couple Ironhawk ships incoming, and he gets on the comm with Mila and says, "Is everyone on board, Lieutenant?" And they respond in the affirmative, and Lucius says, "All right, then let's get out of here." And he is going to power up the Aegis and is going to take off and try and get away from the Ironhawk ships that are approaching. And to do that, he's going to face a little bit of danger. Now, he is an ace pilot, let us not forget. So as part of that, he is going to face danger out of harm's way and gets to add +1 to this roll. So we're going to do this with speed, mobility, and agility, as Lucius is, I think, actually lifting off and then is going to fly through the canyon and wend his way around, trying to throw off the Ironhawk ships in pursuit. So we're going to do this with edge, which is +2, and he gets +1 for his ace. Let's find out how good a pilot he is. So we've got a 9 on the action die, and we've got a 2 and a 4 on the challenge dice, which is a strong hit, successful, and takes +1 momentum. So the Aegis flies down into the canyon and is able to, through a series of incredible acrobatic piloting maneuvers, evade and escape the Ironhawks that are in pursuit. Lucius is, once he feels confident that they are out of range, is going to take the ship up out of the canyon range and into space. And I think is going to prepare to make his journey back to Lodestar. I think escaping from the Ironhawks here represents another progress, as they're away from the Ironhawks on the planet. So that takes us to 6 progress. But I don't think we are ready to fulfill the vow yet, because we know there are other Ironhawks out there hunting Lucius and Adelie. So it is entirely possible that they will come across Ironhawks on the journey back to meet up with Lodestar. Lucius has a course for the return to Lodestar. He's already made that journey. He knows they have a rendezvous spot that they're going to, so he doesn't necessarily need to undertake an expedition to get there. So instead, we're just going to set a course and find out if there are any bumps along the way. As a navigator, when I set a course, I can choose to either follow the fastest path and take +2 momentum on a hit, or follow the safest path and add +1. I think that Lucius is confident that the Ironhawks are increasing their pursuit of the Ascendancy tech, so he's going to move at speed. So we're going to try and get back to Lodestar as quickly as possible. So we're going to roll plus supply on the set of course, and our supply is +1. So who knows? This could go horribly, horribly awry, but we'll find out. I've got a 6 on the action die, and I've got a 1 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So on a strong hit, first of all, I get to mark 2 momentum because of my navigator ability. And that's going to take me up to 6 momentum. And because we got a strong hit, we reach our destination and the situation there favors us. Take +1 momentum again. So I'm going to go up to 7 momentum now. So I just very handily increased my momentum quite a bit. So Lucius makes the jump into E-Drive, charts this course, and they are able to make it to the rendezvous point where they're going to meet up with the Lodestar fleet with relative ease. Well, let's find out what that spot is that they're rendezvousing. So I'm going to roll on my space sighting. 38. Cosmic matter. 64. A dense planetary nebula. That's fun. So the Aegis comes out of E-Drive in this miasm of colors as this nebula that they're supposed to rendezvous with Lodestar in fluctuates in and out and is this just beautiful display of stellar phenomena. We're going to mark 1 more tick on our progress to take it up to 7 as we successfully completed our journey without any sort of interruptions. And it is, I think, time to fulfill this vow. So to do that, we're going to roll the challenge dice and compare it to our progress. I've got 7 progress, so who knows? Could go either way. You got a 5 and a 1 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So our vow is fulfilled. We successfully escorted Adelie to Viridian, kept her alive, and kept the Ascendancy artifact out of the hands of the Ironhawks. And what that strong hit on this fulfill my vow tells me is that the Ironhawks are not here in the nebula waiting to ambush the Aegis or Lodestar. The question is, are we here before Lodestar arrives? And I think it is likely that we are. So first of all, I should resolve my fulfilling the vow here. Mark a reward on your quest's legacy track per the vow's rank. 1 box for a formidable vow. So I already had 1 tick in my 3rd box, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that box up, and then I'm going to add another tick into my 4th box on my quest track. That's going to give me 2 more XP, and I've got 5 XP that I haven't spent yet. So I think there's definitely some XP expenditure in my future. So let's find out if Lodestar has arrived yet. So I think it is likely that they have not. So I guess it is unlikely that they have. So 76 or greater, they have arrived. Otherwise, they've not. 85, they have arrived. Okay, so the Aegis drops out of E-Drive into this gorgeous, densely packed nebula, and there is already the fleet waiting for them. Lucius receives a comm from Lodestar and hears the familiar voice of Commander Caspian. It says, "Mr. Tarquin, seems you've returned. I guess that means your mission was successful?" And Lucius says, "Tell clan leader Aerith I have done as she asks. We would like permission to board, and I would like to speak with my aunt when she arrives. In the meantime, I'm going to, after I land the ship, I'm going to go rest for a bit." And Lucius cuts the comm. I think he receives a docking instruction and is able to maneuver the Aegis onto the flagship Emancipation. Lucius powers down the ship and goes to find Lieutenant Mila, who is, I think, basically waiting for Lucius somewhere outside of the main corridor. And Lucius says, "Lieutenant, we've returned to Lodestar, and you are free to go and please take the Order personnel with you. I'm sure they'll have questions as to what happened to their leader. Between you and me, he tried to kill me and tried to use Adelie to do it. And she fought back, and so did I. And that's that. And I think Lieutenant Mila looks him up and down, still covered in blood, and shrugs a little bit and says, yeah, that sounds about right. I didn't get a good feeling off those two anyways. I'll take care of it. Don't you worry. I'll make sure there's nobody left on board to bother you. You take care of yourself and take care of Adelie as well. And Lieutenant Mila salutes and then turns and heads off into the cargo area of the ship to probably deal with all the refugees that they brought with them. Lucius takes a moment to head to the medical bay where Adelie is resting peacefully. I definitely think she's going to have a little bit of a long recovery here, but there is a good prognosis from the medbots. And I think Lucius spends a little bit of time sitting by her side. Maybe he even brings a book or something that he carried with him from home and spends some time like reading to her. And I think, based on everything that has happened, it's time to try and forge a bond. Adelie had the chance in that cavern to turn her back on Lucius and do what her order told her to do, and she refused. She made her own choice, and she chose to protect her friend rather than bowing to the will of Demetrius. And I think because of that, and because of all of the things that they've been through on their journeys over the last, it's really only been like a week or two at this point, we can go ahead and try and resolve the connection and see if we form a bond. So Lucius has 7 boxes of progress on his connection track with Adelie, and we're going to go ahead and roll the challenge dice, compare it to the progress, and hopefully form a bond with Adelie. Rolled a 3 and a 2 on the challenge dice for another strong hit. You now share a bond. Mark a reward on your bond's legacy track per the connection's rank. So this was a dangerous connection rank, so it's going to be 2 ticks on the bond's legacy, which is the first ticks that I've made on my bond's legacy track. So that's cool. So I'm halfway to filling a box, which is nice. Then I have to choose one. So I can bolster their influence when your connection aids you on a move closely associated with their role, add +2 instead of +1. Or I can expand their role, give your connection an additional role. When your connection aids you on a move closely associated with their new role, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. Okay. I think I'm going to leave Adelie as just the 1 role Paragon, and I'm going to give her the +2 when she aids. So Lucius spends this time with her, and I think maybe there are a couple moments where she comes into consciousness very briefly, and they're able to exchange a few words before she passes out again. And eventually Lucius makes his way back to his own personal cabin. There he is going to try and wash up a little bit, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to try and do some resting moves. So we're going to sojourn with the community at Lodestar, and I think part of that is going to be Lieutenant Mila. So Lucius leaves the ship, Lieutenant Mila meets him, and they go for a drink and for food and just kind of reminisce over their journeys and about the many ways in which they managed to escape from the Ironhawks. So to do that, we're going to roll plus heart. Lucius has got a heart of +2. So here we go. Okay, so I've got a 4 on the action die, and I've got a 10 and a 9 on the challenge dice, which is a miss. So the community needs your help or makes a costly demand in exchange for safe harbor. Envision what they ask of you. If you do it or swear an iron vow to see it done, resolve this move as a strong hit. Otherwise, find no relief and the situation grows worse. So what could the community, and specifically, I think, Lieutenant Mila, as that sort of representative of the community that Lucius is interacting with, what could they need? There is a settlement trouble oracle, so I'm going to roll on that and see what sort of result I get from that. See if that gives me any insight. So I've got 73. Strange phenomenon. Okay, what kind of strange phenomenon? Let's roll on the theme for that phenomenon. 41. Hate. Hate. A strange phenomenon surrounding hate. So let's say there is some disquiet in the ranks of Lodestar. They've now had a number of close encounters with the Ironhawks, and a number of the higher ranking members of Lodestar are former Ironhawks, including clan leader Aerith, and probably Commander Caspian, and maybe even Lieutenant Mila. I'm going to definitely say yes to the first two, but I don't know about Mila. I don't know what their history is. So I want to ask the Oracle. I'm going to say it's 50-50. 51 or greater, yes, Lieutenant Mila was also an Ironhawk before. Otherwise, they came from some other tradition. 47. They are not an Ironhawk. Okay. So maybe there is some question as to whether or not there is an Ironhawk spy in the ranks, and that's causing issues because a number of the higher ranking officers are former Ironhawks. So I think what this looks like is Mila and Lucius are having this meal, and Mila says, "We couldn't have gotten back at a better time. There seems to be some sort of trouble going on. There are all these graffitis that are going up around the ships saying that Clan Leader Aerith or Commander Caspian are actually just using us to further the Ironhawk agenda, and they're actually working with the Ironhawks and not standing for what we all stand for." And Lucius says, "Oh, really? That sounds a little... Well, it seems a little ridiculous that Clan Leader Aerith would be doing that, considering she's the one that started Lodestar. But, I mean, Commander Caspian is... he's a bit of a pain." And Mila says, "Yeah, I suppose. It's strange. I have no reason to doubt Commander Caspian or the clan leader. Of course I wouldn't doubt the clan leader. She has done great things for all of us, but there's clearly some discontent that's happening, and I want to figure it out so that it doesn't go any further. And you are a stranger here. You're not one of us. You're not Lodestar, which means there are people who might not talk to you, but there are people who might talk to you if you would be willing to ask around a little bit for me." And I think Lucius nods and says, "Is this something that is urgent?" And Mila says, yes, it's urgent. If these graffitis go much beyond that, it could lead to strife in our ranks. And when the Ironhawks do show up, that's what they really want. Lucius thinks for a moment and says, you've got a good point there. When I was being interrogated by the Ironhawk captain, he said that he knew how many people I left with. I wonder if they do have a spy here, and that's who's disrupting all of this. All right, I'll ask around a little bit and see what I can figure out. And Lucius is going to grasp his pendant and make this vow to assist Mila in this circumstance. Now, I don't think this is a super difficult, so I'm just going to give it a troublesome rank. So we're going to call this vow Search for Ironhawk Spy. And Lucius is going to go ahead and swear that vow. It's going to do so with heart. Now, Mila is not a connection yet, but I think if we succeed at this vow, there's a possibility of forging a connection with Mila. So rolling plus heart is just +2. I've got a 3 on the action die, and I've got a 1 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So determined to begin, but begin with more questions than answers. So I get to take +1 momentum, and Lucius is going to be like, how do I go about finding a spy amongst a group of people who don't trust me, don't know me, and have no reason to talk to me? Well, I guess I'll just have to go ask questions and talk to people. I'm pretty good at that. And he is going to try and gather some information to see if he can narrow it down and figure out who this might be. So this gathering information is going to be plus wits, +3 on this roll. Got a 4 on the action die, a 2 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. Information provides new insight, but also introduces a complication. Envision what you discover and take +1 momentum. Momentum's up to 9, which is good. But we need to figure out what we discover here. And I think to do that, I want to roll on our action and theme. 78, research, and 16, culture. Research, culture. Okay, so I think the information that he gets that provides new insight is that whoever this person is, this is a recent thing. These graffitis have gone up very recently, and there was, within the last 3 months, an influx of new recruits to Lodestar. Not many people, but we're talking like maybe 25, 30 people. And it is most likely that a spy was in those ranks. And as part of that, when people come into Lodestar and join Lodestar, there is a sort of re-education that goes on, which sounds bad when I say it that way. And maybe it is, but it is very much a meeting of people to talk about the ways that Lodestar is different from the founder clans and the civilization that this group of people has known in the Forge for the last couple generations. So there are these, I think, classes that go on that are basically designed to be like, this is what you were taught in school. This is what actually happened. And whether or not that information is accurate isn't really for Lucius to say right now. But he's got a list of people, I think, that he can at least go try to talk to and maybe even sit in on some of these classes to see if he can figure things out. And I think that's going to be his first step, is he's going to go and talk to one of the instructors and see if he can work some sort of deal out with them where he audits these classes, basically. And I don't think that's a difficult thing. I think they want people to sit in these classes and learn this information and change their perspective on the founder clans and civilization as it has been. So I don't think that is necessarily the obstacle here. I think maybe the obstacle here is he needs to do so in such a way that it's not obvious that he's checking up on these newcomers who are participating in these classes. I think the best way to do that is actually to do a face danger with deception, stealth, or trickery, as he is essentially trying to lie and be like, oh, I'm just curious about this stuff, and obfuscate the fact that he is investigating. His shadow is 1. Lucius is not an accomplished liar, but we'll see what happens. Oh, again, going for the weak roll and getting a strong hit. I've got a 7 on the action die, and I've got a 5 and a 1 on the challenge dice. So I'm going to max out my momentum at 10, and we are successful. So Lucius spends some time, and I think is able to narrow his list of suspects down to about 3 or 4 people. And I'm going to go ahead and mark 3 progress on that vow. as we've made some headway. And Lucius now has 3 names, we'll say, and is going to start checking up on those people as well. So in doing this, he's going to gather some more information using these specific names. So we're going to roll plus wits again, plus 3. We've got a 5 on the action die, 3 and a 4 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. Can't get any more momentum, but the path forward is clear. So I think he narrows it down to a specific person, and that is going to give him another set of progress. And who is this person? What is their role in Lodestar? 64. Pilot. Okay. And some aspects here. 22. Corrupted. That's a good start. 38. Faithful. Interesting. So they're corrupted in that I think they do in fact serve the Ironhawks. And they're faithful in that they are a true believer in the Ironhawks and what they do. They're not out here getting paid to spy. They are probably an Ironhawk themselves. So I think Lucius discovers this and goes to Lieutenant Mila and says, Mila, I think I found our spy. I don't have any evidence of any exact wrongdoing, but I have a strong suspicion based on where the graffitis have shown up, the information that the Ironhawks had on me when they captured me, as well as, and he lists off a couple other pieces of information that he was able to gather throughout the course of his investigation. And he says, I can't be sure, but if we could get this person alone and talk to them, we might be able to get some information out of them or get them to give up their identity. And Mila says, sounds good. Let's go. They are going to head off. I think they're going to try and catch this person unawares. And maybe in so doing, they're going to go to this person's domicile and kind of sneak in there. So we should name this person. Let's call him Cullum. So they go to Cullum's living quarters and let's see if he's there. I think it's 50-50, so 51 or greater. He is there. 56, he's home. Okay, so Lucius and Mila sort of knock on the door and Cullum answers and is like, can I help you? And Lucius says, oh, are you Cullum? My name's Lucius Tarquin. I heard you were a pilot, and I'm looking to see if there's any way we can work out some sort of arrangement. I'm in need of a co-pilot for a short mission, and I heard you were a good one. And Cullum is like, who are you? And Lucius says, I'm a herald. I've just got a short mission, but in order to accomplish it, I need a co-pilot, and I've heard that you're one of the better ones. And he's going to try and talk his way into basically getting a sit-down meeting with this guy, but he's going to have to lie to do so. So we're going to compel with Shadow. So +1 again. Got a 4 on the action die. I've got a 2 and a 9 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. Their agreement comes with a condition or a complication. I think the complication is Cullum says, all right, well, I guess we can talk, but let me grab my ident card and we can go over to the cafe across the way and have a conversation. And Lucius and Mila look at each other and Lucius says, yeah, I guess that's fine. And I think Mila sees that Cullum sort of tenses up a little bit, and Mila steps forward and essentially just decks Cullum and knocks him back into the living quarters. And Lucius, wide-eyed, steps in, takes a look around to see if there's anybody watching, and then shuts the door as Cullum is stumbling back, clutching at his nose, and he's like, oh, what was that for? And Mila says, tell me who you work for, and then starts advancing. I think Cullum at this point tries to charge Mila, and there's going to be a little bit of a brawl here. I don't think it needs to be a huge thing, so I'm going to go ahead and just do the battle. So things happen in a blur, and we're going to be, I think, up close and personal here as we're trying to overpower the foe. So it's going to be plus iron, which is +1. So that's a 7 on the action die, a 5 and a 10 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. You achieve your objective, but not without cost. Pay the price. I feel like the price that has to be paid here is, I think Lucius, who's not a brawler, gets a little banged up in this fight. Like they're in this really like close quarters living environment. There's not a whole lot of space on these ships, and so they're just small cubbies, very Spartan quarters. And Lucius and Mila are trying to subdue Cullum, and he's fighting back, and like furniture's getting thrown around and punches are being thrown, and Lucius takes a couple knocks, I think, and I'm just going to go ahead and tick down his health by 1. But we successfully subdue Cullum, and we're going to mark 3 more progress on our vow, searching for the Ironhawk spy. And then Lucius and Mila are going to question this spy to see if they can find out who else he might be working with or what his objective is. And we're going to do that by fulfilling the vow. So how well we succeed is going to determine how that goes from here. So I've got 9 progress. I'm going to roll the challenge dice, see what happens. 5 and an 8. It's a strong hit. Easy peasy. Vow is fulfilled. Mark a reward. It's just 1 tick, which is fine. And I think we learn that Cullum was sent by the Ironhawks as an advanced scout and was able to infiltrate Lodestar after he learned that they were becoming more and more of a nuisance than the Ironhawks originally thought. And he is indeed the one who sent some information to the Winnower and was able to essentially try and disrupt some of the operations of Lodestar. Lieutenant Mila and Lucius take Cullum and turn him over to Commander Caspian and provide the evidence. And Caspian's like, well done. Lieutenant, I think you might be in line for a promotion. And Mila sort of straightens and is at attention and kind of nods and says, thank you, sir. And Caspian turns to Lucius and says, and you, Mr. Tarquin, it's possible that I misjudged you on our first encounter, and I apologize if I was somewhat rude to you. And Lucius kind of looks at him and is like, that's probably the best I'm going to get out of you, so apology accepted, Commander. Now, if you don't mind, unless the clan leader is ready to see us, I'm going to go back to my ship. Commander Caspian says, I understand. The clan leader is not ready yet for you, but I will let you know when she is. So Lucius and Mila leave Commander Caspian's office and return back to sort of the common area. And I think Lucius is a little bit worn out. I mean, he's kind of a little battered and beaten. And he is going to, first of all, try and form a connection with Lieutenant Mila. So we're going to make a connection. We're going to roll plus heart. Heart is +2. Ooh, all right. So I got a 3 on the action die. I've got a 6 and a 9 on the challenge dice, which is a miss. I don't like that. I want Lieutenant Mila to be an ally. So I'm going to burn that 10 momentum that I've been sitting on pretty much the whole episode to turn this into a strong hit. So I'm going to reset it back to 2. And we're going to create a connection with Lieutenant Mila, give them a role and a rank, and whenever the connection aids on a move closely associated with their role, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. So we're going to go ahead and set up Mila as a connection. And then we are going to go ahead and try to sojourn again to see if we can't recover a little bit. We're spending time with the community, rolling plus heart again. I probably should have saved that momentum for right now, but you know what? That's okay. Didn't need it. So I've got a 6 on the action die. I've got a 2 and a 3 on the challenge dice. And because I've got a strong hit, I can make 2 choices. I can heal, I can hearten, I can repair, or I can resupply. So I'm going to, my health is at 3, my spirit is at 2, and my supply is at 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do the resupply, and that's a strong hit. So I'm going to go ahead and take 2 supplies. That's going to take me back up to 3. I'm going to also hearten, which is going to give me plus 2 spirit. And because I sojourned, I'm going to take plus 1 more. So that's plus 3 spirit. So that takes me back up to 5. That is it for the sojourn. I think Lucius is going to spend a little bit of time with some of the soldiers that came with them, and then is going to return to the Aegis and is going to go to the medical bay and spend a little bit of time treating himself. So he is mending his own wounds, rolling plus iron or plus wits, whichever is lower. In fact, this time it's going to be iron because it's plus 1. Hopefully. All right, we got a 5 on the action die, 4 and a 10 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So as above, but the recovery costs extra time or resources. Choose one, lose momentum or sacrifice resources. I just regained my supply, so I'm going to go ahead and take my momentum down to 0 as Lucius essentially takes a little bit of extra time to heal and recover. In that time that he is sitting in the med bay, resting, recovering, allowing the med bots to do their work, I think Adelie comes to consciousness and she looks across at him and says, "Lucius, are you all right?" Lucius smiles a little bit and says, "Am I all right? You're the one that got stabbed in the gut." And Adelie laughs a little bit and winces and says, "I suppose that's fair, but I know that took a toll on you as well. It was a very dire situation. But I want you to know I would never have betrayed you." Now Lucius grows serious as he's looking at Adelie in her weakened state, knowing that she could probably still tear the ship apart with her paragon abilities. And he says, "I will admit there was a moment where I thought you might. I know how difficult it can be to throw off the shackles of expectation and responsibility, especially that forced on us by others. And I definitely thought there was a chance that you were going to choose them." Adelie reaches out a hand and beckons him closer. And he comes closer. And she says, "Lucius, they were never really my family. You showed me that there could be more to life, to being alive. I would never have chosen them." Lucius takes her hand and holds it tightly, but not too tight. Says, I know that now. And I'm grateful to you for saving my life." This time it's Adelie's turn to smile. And she says, "Well, I think I've lost track of who owes who at this point." Lucius smiles in return and nods and says, "Why don't we just wipe the slate clean? I'm sure we'll have plenty of other opportunities to add new ticks to that particular tally. But for now, you should rest and recover. I don't know when or how, but I think or at least that core that you absorbed, is what the Ironhawks are looking for. And I don't know if it's a part of a larger piece, but I think one way or the other, they're going to come for you." Adelie closes her eyes and says, I know. I'll have to be ready for them. Lucius squeezes her hand just a little bit more and says, "Don't worry. You won't have to face them alone." Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends, family, pets, or really anybody you want about it. And head over to Apple Podcasts to leave a review so more people can find the show. If you want to chat with me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ErrantSolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Are you looking for a D&D podcast with a dark side? Something more like Game of Thrones and less like Monty Python? Tale of the Manticore is part dark fantasy audio drama, part solo D&D RPG. There's no plot armor here. The dice make all the important decisions. Join me as I resurrect the excitement, wonder, and emotion of old school D&D. Made for a mature audience, Tale of the Manticore is both a fiction and a game. It's the story where chaos rolls.